Good afternoon, David, and thank you so much for joining me on the Sami Parvez show. It is great to have you back.
Nice to be back, Sammy, and hope we got lots to talk about today.
Yeah, there is lots of talk, like including tariffs, but we have a federal election on April 28th, and how do you see it? Like everyone knew, like as we always we have been talking about this, there will be an early election, but we did not know when. But as Carney, before resuming the parliament, he asked the governor general to dissolve the parliament, and Canadians will head to the polls on April 28th. But let's talk about the post polls. Like when Trudeau was prime minister, they were struggling to get back. It seems like they will be sometime third or fourth. Now it seems like suddenly they got a boost. Like the polls are every single polls are suggesting that liberals would be a majority, even though a was suggesting from Ecos that Pierre Pouliot would lose his own riding. So how do you see this all, and what's happening?
Well, I think a lot of the polling is biased or skewed, especially I don't buy the latest Ecos poll at all. I put that because Ecos tends to move towards the left. I think the conservatives are probably more reflected by the Compass poll this week that has them at, I think, 46% to the liberals, 44 or somewhere around there. I think it's a close race. I don't for a minute believe that, the polls are completely out of whack and the conservatives still have a huge lead. There's been a deterioration of the conservative lead. There's no question about that. A lot of it, though, has come from the NDP, which has really fragmented. And they're down in some polls to 7%, which is
Yep.
virtual extinction.
Hmm.
They could literally lose all their seats in this election. It's quite possible, which of course would benefit the liberals. But I I have never seen a party go from 26% on January 6th
Hmm.
to potentially, and I don't believe it, but at least one poll is saying 46%.
Yep.
That's a 20% increase in just over 2 months. Well, is it even two? January, February? Yeah,
Yep.
well, less than 3 months. All right. 2.5 months
Hmm.
to gain 20 percentage points. Is Mark Carney that popular? Is Mark Carney that magnetic? Is Mark Carney that much of a savior to the Liberal Party? I find it hard to believe. I don't see any reason for Carney mania, nor do I see any Carney mania. If you go to these rallies,
Hmm.
the enthusiasm is forced. It's like there are people who are literally paid to be a cheering section, and the rest of the crowd is not even engaged.
Hmm.
There's a lot of deception going on in these rallies. The same sort of thing, and we've demonstrated that when Carney was running for the Liberal leadership. Crowds were inflated by artificial intelligence,
Yep.
and I can demonstrate pictures where people are literally out of place. There's something wrong with the picture. It's been tampered with, and I think it's the Kamala Harris effect that's happening here in Canada right now.
Yep.
She consistently outpolled Donald Trump almost until November 5th,
Yep.
so election day. She was always outpolling Donald Trump. She was either tied or ahead in all the swing states.
Yes.
Donald Trump took all those swing states. They beat her handily. And I think and also Kamala Harris crowds were constantly being appraised by the national media as being
Hmm.
huge and outnumbering Donald Trump's and
Yep.
so enthusiastic. I'm seeing the same phenomena. I think we're being played here. And I think that's the larger issue is that I think Canadians are being played by pollsters and the mainstream media up to now, anyway. I'm seeing a change there. But there's a consensus that Canada needs Mark Carney. And that's an opinion. I think that's being foisted on us by the globalists in Davos and elsewhere, uh, in Brussels, the European Union people, the United Nations people, all of the people that Mark Carney was in touch with and worked for and continues to be very involved with.
Hmm.
And these are the people who want Mark Carney to be elected as prime minister, to be validated, to be legitimized. Right now, he's an unelected bureaucrat. That's how exactly how I described him on my own broadcast this morning.
Hmm.
He's a prime minister, but he's a prime minister in name only. He's been elected to no office, not even as an MP. He's an unelected bureaucrat posing as the prime minister, and he wants a 4-year mandate. But I'll tell you this, Sammy, it's a race against time. It's a race against time because Carney wants a mandate now
Hmm.
because after now, meaning after at the next 4 weeks, he has to reveal his finances. He has to be upfront about where the money has come from, where it's gone. And this is already exploding in his face. The questions that are coming out about why didn't he pay any taxes? Why did he shelter his money in in Bermuda? What was going on with this corporate tax rate that he did pay at one point of 10%?
Yep.
Why is he so attached to China? Why did he go to China in October 2024 and get a loan for his company for Brookfield Assets Management? He was supposed to be there representing the Canadian government, essentially, not officially, but representing the Liberal Party, representing Justin Trudeau. He was not there representing Brookfield Management, Assets Management. And that's how he treated the trip. So, and even the mainstream media is now starting to ask these questions.
Yep.
And so I think that's good.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Like what would happen like if Carney loses a seat and his party wins the majority of seats?
What would
Like
happen?
will he remain the prime minister?
Oh yeah, he'd remain the prime minister, just like he is now. He doesn't have a seat now. He's prime minister.
Hmm.
He would remain a prime minister without a seat,
Yep.
and he would obviously be forced to find another sacrificial liberal
Hmm.
like poor Chandra Arya, who was sacrificed on the
Yep.
altar of Mark Carney.
Hmm.
He would have to find another liberal who would step aside for him. And by the way, that really upset me. What happened to Chandra Arya? It's not like we're old friends or anything.
Yep.
And I probably wouldn't agree with a lot of what Chandra Arya has stood for or said over the years, but I think he deserves better than that.
Yep.
10 years as an MP, he's proven he can win that seat. And the liberals just shunt him aside like he's an old piece of wood. And Mark Carney is there, and he doesn't even understand why. Yeah, well, how did you get this? Why did you take that seat, Mark Carney? I don't know what happened. It's just there was some problem, and so here I am. The guy is just completely seething with hypocrisy, and I think that attitude is going to grate on Canadian people.
Hmm.
Just like I interviewed a guy this week who was leading that contingent of fishermen in
Yep.
Newfoundland. First day of the election campaign, St. John's, Newfoundland.
Yep.
And, and Richard Gillette is his name. And he said to me, he says he just has no time for this man because he's so dismissive. He so doesn't have any time for ordinary Canadians. That's all he wants to talk about. Like he's such a compassionate, empathetic man, but he has no real time for real people. And I think that attitude is going to come through no matter how much of the mainstream media wants him to win this election or how much the pollsters want him to win, how much the establishment here wants him to win and everything else. It's a matter of time. I think it comes through, but it's going to be a heck of a tight. It's going to be a hard race. There's no question. And Pierre Poilievre is not overconfident. I can tell you that. He is taking this one day at a time. He is planning his events very carefully, and he's expressing policy statements very prudently.
Mm-hmm.
on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's what he needs to do until he can see where the electorate is moving on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's all he can do.
Yep. And we also saw that like many liberal MP who first said when Trudeau was the leader and they were behind the conservative, they said they are not seeking re-election, but suddenly they changed their mind, particularly Sean Fraser,
Yeah.
who destroyed Canada immigration, then housing. And now he says, oh, Carney told him that he would get more time to be with family, but before he said due to his family. So, what do you take from this? MPs like Sean Fraser are changing their minds now. They need to run. Do you think they are going to win their seats?
Well, I've no doubt the idiots that elected Sean Fraser the last time will probably re-elect him because Sean Fraser was a disaster as a cabinet minister. And here's Mark Carney. I have to laugh, saying what a class act he is and what a high caliber individual he is. One of the worst cabinet ministers there. But he's welcome to come back because this is a liberal party of predators. You just all you've got to do is say you're prepared to do anything to win, and you're welcome back. And so
Yep.
why is Sean Fraser there? Well, he won the last time. He'll probably win again. That's the only reason he got that. It's not because he's indispensable to the Carney team, and
Mhm.
this is a high class individual. I mean, it just once again, it's the hypocrisy of this whole thing. And the Liberal Party has become so anti-democratic, just like the Democratic Party has become. It's is so reflective of that contempt for voters, the contempt for decisions, the contempt for the nomination process. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting that Sean Fraser should come back and say, I want my nomination back." Well,
Mhm.
buddy, you decided not to run. Tough luck. Not with Mark Carney. No, Mark Carney decides who the Liberal nominees are going to be. That's quite clear. This is a one man party. It's one man rule. And that's exactly how he's going to run Canada. God forbid if he gets his mandate, he gets his majority. And it's interesting. He was said yesterday, when he had a cheering section behind him. Yeah, we're going to get a majority. Why do we need a majority? He said, well, because we got a lot of things to change. What does he want to change? Probably nothing, except it's going to be even worse authoritarian rule under
Mhm.
Mark Carney. Will be under the thumb of the globalist institutions, and this is a man who is. I don't believe will stop at anything to attain his objectives, which are total power.
Mhm. Yep. Okay. And like Carney also declined for uh, French language TVA debate, and also Pierre Polier offers him like those 75,000 because he said that he cannot afford. So, do you think was it because of money or he cannot speak properly French? Like we know, like he is unable to speak fluently as it was during leadership debate, and now he is speaking. He says something else instead of you know like is uh, mis misreading or like
Yes, he doesn't understand the nuances of the French language, unlike Pierre Polyev, who speaks excellent French,
yep.
and of course the bloc leader. It's that's just his mother tongue.
Yep.
But was it about the money with Mark Carney? I mean, Mark Carney is awash with money. He's got a personal fortune. His wife is independently wealthy. I don't know how much they're worth. They've been very guarded about that. Hundreds of millions, probably. Yeah, easily. They hobnob with the super rich. They hobnob with the girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein when they were in the UK,
Mhm.
and we know his wife was on the Epstein contact list. So what kind of people are these? Well, they hobnob with the elite, the super rich, those who think they don't have to play by the rules. Can he afford it? Yes, he can afford it. Can he speak French well enough to not come off as a fool? No, because he barely makes by, and I can tell you exactly what he's doing as
Mm-hmm.
somebody who struggled learning French later in life, because I didn't grow up in a French milieu. I had to learn French in the armed forces,
Yep.
and it was difficult to learn French in your mid 20s.
Mm-hmm.
But he lines up a bunch of stock questions or statements and inserts them in his speech, and he rehearses them. But when you surprise him with a phrase or a sentence he's not ready for, he doesn't know how to respond. His French is weak, but of course, that should not have disqualified him from being the liberal leader. That was his problem once again with Chandra. Or he couldn't speak French. He said,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, we can't have him as the leader of the Liberal Party." But Mark Carney, French is abominable, and yet it's okay, and he can't participate in a French language debate. When's the last time a leader of the Liberal Party of Canada didn't participate in a French language debate?
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Well,
I think if we had them in those days, maybe Lester Pearson, whose French wasn't great,
yep.
but you might have to go back even 100 years
Mm-hmm.
to find a maybe back to Mackenzie King. But I don't. I really find it incredible he gets away with this double standard. Everything about Mark Carney is a double standard.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's a standard for me. There's a standard for the rest of you. It's, whether it's his taxes, whether it's speaking French, or whether it's his company can invest in fossil fuels, but nobody else can. We have net zero policies in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also like Carney is saying that he's going to spend like $2 billion on uh, making every product in Canada, particularly auto. So where would they bring those $2 billion?
And Mark Carney, the same place that Mark Carney found $2 billion as governor of the Bank of England, his last failed job, print it. That's how he'll do it, and that's exactly what he did as the governor of the Bank of England. He ruined the British economy to the
Mm-hmm.
point now where I have it on good authority that the Bank of England is teetering on the brink of collapse.
Yep.
And the collapse began under Mark Carney because his policy was tax and print.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly how he ran the bank, and that's how he's going to run the government. He's talking like a fiscal conservative right now, to some degree. I mean, not completely, but he's suggesting he's a fiscal conservative. He's very good at suggesting. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't exactly lay out anything concrete. A 1% tax cut. Wow. I mean, that's really going to be a big change. And he's talking, and one day he'll say, I don't really mind pipelines. The next day he's back to no more pipelines.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is to project a relatively moderate stance on the economy
Mm-hmm.
because everybody knows now what the environmental extremism has done to Canada. It's virtually destroyed, it's gutted our energy sector, which is foundational to the whole Canadian economy. Lots of people don't even realize that. Take the oil and gas out of Canada, and we have nothing, virtually nothing left. And the auto sector, that's going to be gone if these tariffs come through with Donald Trump. The auto pact is history.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of free trade we had with automobiles will be history. And Mark Carney can talk all he wants about investing or spending $2 billion on the auto sector. It will not be enough.
Mm-hmm.
And no amount of billions will be enough if we go down this route.
Mm-hmm. And last night also Trump like tweeted not earlier this morning, like after midnight that warn Europe like if they try to help like Canada and hurt US, they will pay a huge price. So what Trump is going to do like with Europe and Canada? And also, like, is Trump is just waiting who will be the next prime minister to deal with?
That's exactly what Mark Carney accidentally said this week. In fact, I just wrote a an article about that today
Mm-hmm.
for the Blaze, actually, which I've just began writing for 3 4 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and Carney accidentally let it out that Donald Trump doesn't want to talk to him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not answering, and he won't call him. And of course, Mark Carney won't call Donald Trump because he's afraid of him. It was quite clear in his exchange with the reporter that he's afraid to talk to Donald Trump. But my question is, okay, so Trump doesn't want to talk to you. Talk to somebody else in the administration. Have you heard of J.D. Vance, the vice president? Pretty
Yep.
open guy, accessible. How about the Commerce Secretary? How about somebody? Stop
Mm-hmm.
talking about how you're going to get tough with the U.S. when you won't even pick up the phone right now. Danielle Smith is back in the United States today. She's on the Shapiro show talking about the issues. Daniel Smith is doing more for Canada and going down and going on American podcasts and talking about the need for rational thinking here. Let's sit down. Let's get this solved. Let's get back to some more free trade talk. Let's stop talking about destroying economies. Mark Carney is a failure already. He's done nothing as prime minister to actually fight this trade war except stupid words and threats, which mean nothing. He can't beat Donald Trump. Canada will not beat the United States. There has to be some accommodation, and he
Mm-hmm.
better get off his high horse and stop pretending that he's got a secret plan that he's going to reveal on April 29th
Mm-hmm.
after the election. And that's exactly what this is all about. It's buying time. Just give me that mandate, and I'll tell you everything on April 29th. He's got nothing else to add. This man will not be talking to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has said he doesn't want to talk to him. He's waiting to see who wins the election. And I think I was quite, shall we say, disappointed in Donald Trump saying he would prefer to see Mark Carney win. But it's
Mm-hmm.
clear to me why Donald Trump would prefer to see Mark Carney win, because he thinks he can roll all over Mark Carney.
Yep.
And I think that's what it because for Donald Trump's not there to serve Canada. He's there to serve the United States. And obviously he wants the weaker vassal to negotiate with. And Mark Carney is the weaker vassal. This guy likes to talk tough and like he's Mr. Experience, but he's Mr. Experience at failure. That's his greatest experience.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. And so, like, NDP is dropping in the poll, as you were saying earlier, like 7% or 8%. Is a liberal boost liberals are gaining because of NDP?
That's the largest part of it. I think there's some soft conservative support that's gone over to the liberals, which could easily go back. So I'm not. I'm convinced that the hemorrhaging that's gone on in the Conservative Party can be restored if Polyev continues to campaign from a position of strength, and we see the numbers start to rise in more than one poll. It's not like he's fallen behind. In at least one poll, he's ahead. But I do agree with you. That's where most of this liberal gain has come from, and the NDP is really in a horrible position because it could literally lose every seat the way things are going. They're even talking about some of the strongest NDP seats in the country in British Columbia, in urban British Columbia,
Mhm.
falling to the Liberals, and this is entirely possible. But I would blame Jagmeet Singh for this because of his complete inability to make up his mind about what the hell he's doing from one day to the next,
Mhm.
and simply being a vassal of Justin Trudeau for the past 2 years and not ever drawing a distinction between himself and the liberals. And when he did, he refused to do anything to stop the liberal. He refused to bring down the liberal government, even after he started saying, well, I don't like the liberals any more than the conservatives. And of course, that was all nonsense. I understand uh, he's already said, even though he's probably going to lose his own seat,
Yep.
he's already told Mark Carney that the NDP will bolster, will back up, will prop up any liberal minority government again. No, no surprise. However, I don't think they're going to be in a position to prop anybody up. I think they'll be reduced to maybe 5 seats, and if these numbers hold, they'll be reduced to maybe 5 seats, maybe none. It could be the worst year ever for the CCF NDP in their entire 60, 70 year history. Well, actually, they go back to the 1930s, so it's been in their 90-year history. This could be the worst year they ever have.
Wow. And is there any scope for PPC, People's Party, anything for them to gain anything in this election?
Potentially. I was having a conversation last night with a guy who is running for the PPC in Alberta,
Mm-hmm.
and it's quite possible because of the uncertainty with the Conservatives that there might be some breaking towards the PPC in this election, which of course would be good news for the Liberals because it's so tight. But it depends on how much the support the Conservatives can bolster. I don't. I think the PPC is being underpolled as usual. In the polls where they are even represented, they're getting what 3% maybe. Always less than the Green Party. But I think they're actually polling higher than that. There's a chance they could get one or two or even 3 seats. I think Maxime Bernier has a fairly good shot of taking the seat finally after all these years. He's running. He's running in a Quebec riding where the incumbent has retired,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's a possibility because he does have good name recognition, and I think they might get 2 or 3 seats this election. It's a possibility. It's not going to be there's not going to be some PPC breakout, but I think they will get finally some representation in the House of Commons. But and I don't think they're going to be I hate to use this word, but spoiler,
Mm-hmm.
because no vote is should be considered a spoiler.
Yep.
But I don't think they're going to hijack a conservative victory. Let's put it
Mm-hmm.
that way. I don't think that's going to happen because they're not going to get 15 or 20 seats.
Yep.
That's just highly, highly improbable. But and so I don't think they're going to be the cause of the conservatives not getting a minority or majority government. But I think it would be good to have some representation from the PVC because they would
Yep.
keep the conservatives more honest in their
Yep.
policies. I've always said that.
Yep.
And I would love to see Maxime Bernier
I
get back
agree.
get back in the House of Commons. But it's a this is a very different election. We haven't had an election like this. Oh, probably since 1958, actually,
Mm-hmm.
where the then CCF party was virtually obliterated at that point, and the Liberals were reduced to a very small portion, and the Conservatives got 208 seats. And at that time, it was the largest majority in the history of Canada. But it was basically a two-party system, and that's what we're looking at in this election. It's basically two parties.
Mm-hmm.
It's Polyev versus Carney, and every day these two are going to head to head. And the other there's other parties involved in this race, but they're ultimately not going to have an impact on the final numbers. And I think I'm going to be right about that. When all this is over, the NDP will not be a kingmaker
Mm-hmm.
any more than a PPC will be a kingmaker at the end of the day.
Yep.
And, but it's going to be a very, very increasingly hostile and angry election as we get closer. Because I'll tell you this, Mark Carney has a temper problem. It's already emerged when he gets questions that aren't exactly as he expected. When he doesn't get the softball questions from the media, you can just see him rankle. You can just see him look Like, what? Who let this guy in? Who let this woman in here? I'm not
Mhm.
supposed to be getting questions like this. He's very thin-skinned, and nobody gets under people's skin better than Pierre Polyev. He used to
Yeah.
do it consistently in the House of Commons. Nobody got Justin Trudeau more angry than Pierre Polyev. He
Mhm.
needs to do that every day with Mark Carney. And I predict when when they meet in the English debate, which I think Mark Carney will show up for, I hope, Polyev will massacre him and he'll get him angry. And he'll know exactly when he has to strike the final blow. But he's going to get Carney angry, which in the if you compare a political debate to boxing, getting somebody angry is like those jabs that
Yep.
wear down your opponent, those left jabs that wear down the opponent and the opponent starts to bleed. That's like getting angry in a debate. Once you lose your temper in a debate, it's over. And and the end is near. And the curtain will fall after that, and you're going to lose that debate. I think Poilievre's going to win big in the debate, and I think that's going to be probably the moment when the Conservative Party knows it's going to win this election.
Mhm. Yeah, and also, don't you like observe that Carney struggles while responding to a reporter's question?
Oh yes, because he has a script, and he's got one speech. He keeps telling this. He keeps reading the same speech at
Yep.
every event.
Hmm.
I've heard it now. God knows how many times. I can't stand it. Listen to him anymore. But he can't stand answering questions because he's not always sure what the question's going to be.
Yep.
So he couldn't rehearse it.
Hmm.
This is a man who has to rehearse everything.
Yep.
And if it's not the question he was expecting, he's
Yep.
terrible thinking on his feet. You've noticed that. The
Yep.
word salads. He's as bad as Kamala Harris with word salads.
Mm-hmm.
Bunch of things that mean absolutely nothing. He was talking about why it's okay for him to put his money in Bermuda, why it's okay to use Bermuda as a tax haven. He
Mm-hmm.
couldn't explain that. He
Yep.
said, well, it's because of the regulations or the regulations or the regulations. The regulations apply so we can have regulations.
Mm-hmm.
This is the sort of nonsense he comes out with. And it's absolutely meaningless. And he cannot think on his feet. He was not prepared for the CBC to come
Mm-hmm.
after him about the offshore tax haven. He
Yes.
was expecting nothing. But I can tell you why the CBC decided to get tough with him because the other day he went after Rosemary Barton.
Yep.
I think when he was in London,
Yes.
Rosemary Barton asked a question, and it was like Carney had been angry at her since the last time they they were they were doing an interview on CBC. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember the interview. She asked him about his finances. God, don't ask me about my finances ever. I'll tell you in 120 days.
Yeah.
So he said, Rosemary, you've got to let that aggression go. You've got to let it go, Rosemary.
Yep.
So so I'm thinking the CBC said, hey, there's something wrong with this guy,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe we should take a closer look at him.
Yep.
There's some good reporters at the CBC. I'll never agree with them being subsidized to the tune of $1.3 billion. I think they should go, be privatized. But there are
Mm-hmm.
some good reporters at CBC, good reporters I've known over the years.
Yep.
And I hope some of them come through this election to ask honest questions like they did yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So it is better, like like I know we have lots of honest journalists in mainstream media, but they are compelled not to do their work like that way. Like they are being pushed from the top management what they need to write or report or ask questions. And so let's talk about like this debate which will happen like on 16 and 17 from election commission or debate commission. Like one will be in French and English. So it seems like is what we are observing right now with respect to Carney's French. So you would struggle terribly. And but will Maxime Bernier could qualify because of their latest rules. Is there any chances
Yeah,
for him?
if you're going to have five people there anyway, sure, bring Maxime in. He belongs there more than this co-leader of the Green Party, who I've never even seen before
Mm-hmm.
until he was in all the pictures with the other leaders. And I think, who's
Yeah.
this guy anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out he's the co-leader of the Green Party. I guess he steps in when Elizabeth May is incapable of standing up that day.
Mm-hmm.
There can be no other reason. But he doesn't even have a House of Commons seat. He's tried what, two or three times to get elected. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
wants to elect the guy, and yet he's going to be in the debate. Oh, it's absolutely outrageous. And I mean, the Green Party has, if the Green Party is there, why not the PPC? I mean,
Yes.
it's absolute ludicrous. It's insanity. But
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because I don't even watch these debates anymore. Well, I have to confess, the last time around, I couldn't watch them. I've watched them every bloody election, but
Mm-hmm.
they are just such free for alls now. With
Mm-hmm.
all of these people, it's like an argument at the kitchen table
Yep.
with an unruly family.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing ever gets said or done or proven or not proven. It's just a bunch of people arguing, and
Yep.
I just find them totally un
Useless.
uninteresting and
Mm-hmm.
completely without any merit anymore. It's interesting that when 1968, Richard Nixon, who was running as a Republican candidate for president,
Mm-hmm.
refused to have a three-person debate when George Wallace was running as an independent
Mm-hmm.
and Hubert Humphrey was running as the Democratic nominee. Richard Nixon said, "No, I'm not doing a three-person debate. That's ridiculous. It's got to be between two people."
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what Dick Nixon would say about Canadian debates today, but I find them really ludicrous now.
Yep.
They're almost like those Democratic and Republican debates where you've got 12 people on the stage, and it
Mm-hmm.
it's it what is really being proven? Who really proves a point? And for me, I don't know what the Bloc is doing there in the English debate. I
Mm-hmm.
have no idea. The Bloc should not be there in the English debate. They're not there except to separate from Canada.
Yep.
They have no desire to win the federal election.
Mm-hmm.
They're just there to capture seats in Quebec. So
Mm-hmm.
what are they doing there?
Yep.
I've been asking that for the last 30 years. They have no right to be in in the English debate.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the state of Canadian debate. I tell you what I was really worried about, Sammy, before I forget, that we were going to go to the digital or electronic voting system this election year. Because if you voted in Ontario in the
Yep.
recent provincial election, they're now using the Dominion system of electronic voting.
Yep.
And I don't like that system. It's been fraught with difficulties in the past. I want paper ballots that are counted by human beings, not machines.
Yep.
I called up Elections Canada this week, and I didn't say I was a reporter. I just called the general helpline. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, I've worked for Elections Canada in the past, and I have. I
Mm-hmm.
was a poll manager in the 2015 election. So
Yep.
I know something about how Elections Canada works. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm very concerned that you're going to be moving to the digital or electronic voting system where ballots are counted by machines.
Yep.
So because I think that's the potential for abuse is very high.
Mm-hmm.
And very nice guy, communications guy on the other, I think he was communications guy on the other end of the phone. He said, I agree with you. He says, I don't like that system either. And let me confirm to be sure that we have no plans of changing that. And
Mm-hmm.
it came, 5 minutes later, he said, no, we're staying with paper ballots. And I said, well, thank God,
Mm-hmm.
because I think there could have been tremendous abuse potentially occur with that. So that's good news. I just wanted to bring that up, but it's in terms of these debates, though, I don't know what purpose they're serving anymore.
Yep.
But
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, like they changed, like particularly Ontario election is in like it is not digital, but it is electronic. Like they will the ballot would be casted electronically. You put it in machine tabulator, so it means it
Yeah.
would be counted by tabulator, and they don't count it. I worked like in the last two election. This election I worked as the supervising deputy returning officer. So 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 they don't count it unless they find it. It means they test the system after voting on the following day. If if they get the same result, it's okay. If they don't get the same result what they had before, just from the random, like the some samples of those ballots, so they would
Yeah.
do it again. Otherwise it means those are the results. So it means that is machine, they can make mistake, and we don't know like either those are the right results we have. So this could be what you said, like it means in the federal system they should not change it, as they are not going to do it at this time, but we don't know what are they going to do in
No,
future. But the,
that's one thing we do really well in Canada
Mhm.
is have federal elections because there's one law, there's one standard across the country. There's
Yep.
not 13 different ways of voting.
Hmm.
Unlike in the States
Yep.
where there's 50 different ways of voting. We
Yep.
have Elections Canada,
Hmm.
and we have people counting the ballots. The ballots are verified with scrutineers. We have an honest, open procedure, and
Yep.
it works very well. And we get results faster
Yep.
than
Yep.
a lot of countries with electronic voting.
Hmm.
So it works well. Don't try to fix it because if you try to fix it, it's for the wrong reasons. It's
Hmm.
for corrupt reasons. And
Yep.
I was it was a nice conversation with Elections Canada today.
Hmm. Good to hear that. Okay, so is there anything else you would like to share about today's discussion? If I did not mention it, or I did not ask you.
I I would just say that we this is going to be a very pivotal week coming up next week as we enter like week two, and that's basically Sunday, I suppose, when this starts.
Hmm.
And the liberals are going to try everything they can to present Pierre Poilievre as Canada's Donald Trump.
Hmm.
That is going to be their strategy. That is going to be their focus beginning in week two because it started this week. Just the hint that Pierre Poilievre is he likes Donald Trump, even though I don't. Donald Trump has said he really doesn't like Pierre Poilievre. And
Hmm.
Pierre Poilievre has been just as combative towards Donald Trump as Mark Carney, but that's going to be where they want to go with this because they've made this election about Donald Trump already.
Yep.
That's been the game plan since before Trudeau left is make this next election about Canada versus Donald Trump.
Hmm.
Canada meaning the Liberal Party. Get that straight. Liberal Party equals Canada. Donald Trump evil. We are fighting Donald Trump. Conservatives are on the side of Donald Trump. Therefore, the conservatives have to be stopped. It's that simple. And that's where they're going to go next week. Pierre Poilievre is Donald Trump. The conservatives are just like the Republican Party. And you'll start to hear this phrase again because they use it every time. These these American style policies. Watch for it. Wait for it. American style policies. They bring it out every election. They brought it out against Stephen Harper. They brought it out against every conservative leader, probably going back to Bob Stanfield. It's American style policies. And that's going to be the theme for next week or and that's going to be the beginning of it. But they will pound harder and harder every week with this. But I think Mark Carney is going to collapse under the pressure of campaigning because this is not a cakewalk like the Liberal leadership campaign.
Hmm.
And he's not going to get pushed through the finish line by a corrupt process. He's not going to get 86% of the votes in every constituency in Canada. He's going to have to fight for this one. And I don't think he's got the moxie, or the heart for that.
Hmm. Okay, thank you so much, David, for joining me on this week. Hopefully, looking forward to seeing you again next week. Let's see what will happen until the campaign. And once again, and thank you. And you please take good care. As you, last time you said you were sick. Hopefully, you will feel better. You are better, but
Much better.
yeah. And you take care and
All
see
right. Thank you, Sammy.
you. My pleasure.
We'll see
Thank
you
you.
soon.
Yeah, see ya. Bye.